Hey, Marone. Hey, everybody. Thanks for
Drew,
welcoming
what's
me to
going
this
on?
interview.
Yeah,
Nothing much.
thanks for joining us on this show. I love how we're all talking at once. We're just all too excited.
We are.
We're
This
too
is
hyped
really
for
exciting.
this. Yeah, I'm very excited for this. This is probably the first time I'm showcasing my game on a stream. So
Really?
said it to everybody. Yeah.
Not only is it a first for GGN to have its first interview, it's a first for you as well to be showing off your game live on stream. I love it.
Exactly. Gotta have two firsts, you know? Perfect.
Two firsts.
Absolutely.
So this is Drew, also known as Treaky Online. He is the game developer and director for Adeona at Box Attack Studios. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Drew?
Sure. So I started off originally as an animator and a film student doing editing and stuff like that. And then someone plopped in Unity in my lap and was like, yo, you can make games really fast with this. And I got almost immediately hooked onto it. So I started teaching myself how to use Unity and programming and self-teaching myself C# and Python and all the different types of programming languages, and just dove in head first. So,
I love how they said you can develop games really fast. Have you found that to be true?
So yes and no. That was like, I was like, wow,
wait.
this is so easy. And then as I dug further, I was like, oh, like there's a caveat with that. So like there's a lot of preset things where you can like plug in a first person controller and then you can make a map and then you have people walk around with it, which was my first game. And then I was like, cool. And then as you expanded, you realize, oh, I can't use this first person controller because I can't dig into the programming. And then you actually have to learn programming. And then you have to actually get your own art assets. And then it just, as game development is for me, it's always a black hole where you dig into something and 5 other problems show up and 5 other things you have to fix or want to add or want to change or whatever.
Was the thought of creating your own game something more recent, or was there a time period, you know, in your youth when you were gaming that you were like, you know what, one day I want to be able to make one of my own?
Yeah, I actually tried to make a couple games when I was a kid with a couple of my friends who were programmers. I was trying to do some art and trying to learn Game Maker for it. So I made, when Game Maker was very, very young and was pretty shoddy, I created a couple of simple breakout games and Tetris games out of it. I was trying to make this fighting game that was way too big in scope. I think I was in middle school or something, and then once you realize,
wow, let's start it off early. So Marone and I know Drew from Caffeine. Yo, any caffeine heads in the chat? He also designed.
We know Amanda's in here.
Amanda's in here.
We
from
miss
Caffeine.
you too. We miss you too, Amanda.
Drew designed our DGN logo for us as well, which is mad cool. I know you also worked on a VR show with Caffeine. Can you tell us about your work with that, and if any of your, you know, development background helped with your work there, or if it was, you know, kind of a separate endeavor?
Yeah, so I applied for Caffeine actually to be a streamer, like out of nowhere. I have no streaming experience.
Streamer!
Like, someone posted it on Facebook, and I was like, why not? And then they saw that I put Unity experience, and so they dragged me in for an interview. And then I had already messed around making VR, like I made a room in VR for a class project that you had interactable objects you could chuck around and mess up. So they dragged me in, and they were like, hey, like making this really weird live animated improv show, and we need someone to make sets in Unity. And I kind of dove headfirst and like learned with them as I went, and like I ended up making a lot of really weird props and really weird characters and sets. Like I remember at one point I made Space Herpes, which was like a reoccurring prop throughout the show.
Nice.
And then we had this like, I loved LaCroix when we were there, so we made like, a fake LaCroix, and we had these like complex Space Vegas, and like it just expanded out into me learning how to do kind of level design and environment design. So it helped a lot. And
that is a lot of work.
Yeah, it sounds like great experience, and it was in Unity as well, you said?
Yeah. It was great because it was in Unity, but it was also I couldn't do any programming with it in there because of the way it was structured. But I learned how to use all the Unity-based tools and be able to do all the more like art environment aspect work. And I thought that was really cool to actually be able to think of like, oh, I want to make this like weird hallway that has plant monsters in it, and then you go and make it and hop into VR, and then you actually have plant monsters surrounding you.
Right. Yeah. You know, we also saw on your website that you were talking about Hyper Light Drifter as your favorite game. For you, what would you say is an example with that game that it does really well? And maybe what are some other notable examples of mastery in game development?
Sure. So I really like Hyper Light Drifter because the main developer on there has like a pretty hefty heart disease that could kill him at any point. And he puts that into the design of the game and structure of the game. So the game is played with this like stoic, calm character that just like the only thing he doesn't even say anything. Like the entire game is without any dialogue, and all story is shown through images or like moments of the character coughing up blood and slowly moving. Wow. And so he takes that and applies it to the design theory as well, and you end up having this character who like you'll enter a match and you feel like the character is like a speed bike you're on, and you're constantly zipping around, like attacking enemies and flying through enemies. And then at any moment, if one of the enemies hits you, you end up like someone opened a door in a lane for the speed bike and you go flying off, and like the entire battlefield goes into chaos. So it makes this nice balance between like complete chaos and like you having the ordered plan. And I feel like that little like leeway between the two really makes the game really fun. So.
Makes me very interested in the game. I've never played it. As you describe it, I was like, I feel like I need to play this right now.
Yeah, highly recommend it.
Great.
And then like another aspect is like the story-based aspect of the game is like you can dig into it, and there's like an entire language made in the game that like it just looks like symbols, but like people have dug through and like uncoded it and like read the history of the background. So for people who really want to dig into that lore stuff, they can, but it doesn't force you. So people who just want to play the game and ignore any lore, they can completely, really easily. So.
Which is funny because that's like what Cyberpunk 2077 is doing, is that you can ignore all of the main mission and just play it through side missions and never touch any of the main missions and still complete the game. So it's so funny that you bring that up, that even like a major studio like CD Projekt Red recognizes, you know, the benefit of putting that type of choice into your game.
That's with design, you have to account for like both sides of players. You want to account for the players who love story and the players who hate story. And you, as a designer, you have to account for every single way a player might like break your game or destroy your game or want to play your game or not want to play your game or
right.
I love Chad's comment. This has nothing to do with gaming, but I'm loving the Mexican flag in the background.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Mexican American.
I guess kind of a side question. Have you, taken into account, diversity in your character creation, or how did you approach character creation, in your game?
Yeah, so my main character is Amber, named after one of my friends who I consider like a strong female warrior. And
shout out to Amber.
Shout out to Amber. But I really wanted to create a strong female character that had like no romantic interest involved, like essentially asexual. And so I kind of wanted to create something that like had diversity but didn't have it like forced.
I know you mean, yeah.
And like all the characters are like in differing colors, and it's all like one color gradient, black and white. Part of that's for the game design and the theory and the main mechanic of color changing. But another part of that is that I don't want you to be able to tell like what race is any of the characters or what color. It's just like all vague skin colors. So like gray is not really one way or the other,
Right. Yeah. Should we dive into it? Should we take a look at your game?
Let's do that. And then Guff also had a question in there while you're getting ready to do this. Is Unity free to dive into like Unreal?
Yes, Unity's free. The difference between Unreal and Unity is this pricing differences, but you can completely download it for free and dive in. And the advantage with Unity is there's way more tutorials and way more like comments and threads, being able to dig in and figure things out. So
cool.
Also, as we start playing this game, I do want to say it's not a finished game.
For sure.
It's in beta, so there's a couple bugs still here and there, but slowly trying to fix it.
How dare you show us a beta?
An unfinished product! This is launch!
Rude of me. Yeah. It was last night I spent, I think, 2 or 3 hours trying to fix a bug that I almost fixed, and then it completely reverted itself for no reason.
Oh no!
That's
Do you want to give us a brief overview of the story, just in case anybody missed the text that was popping up that is this game?
Sure. So Adeona's set in a world where like it's kind of the aftermath of a bunch of strong beings kind of clashing, colliding, destroying each other essentially. And so you're left over with the remnants of that and characters, these gods that have taken over and kind of formed these 5 tribes. And so the 5 tribes like praise these gods and kind of battle and attack and kill each other, and all of them are kind of blessed with their own kind of abilities.
Okay.
So
this is the apocalypse of this world.
It's like a rebuilt apocalypse is essentially what it is. So
nice.
And so the game is a Zelda-like game, so classic slasher, classic.
I was gonna say I'm getting strong Zelda vibes.
Yeah, and combination of Zelda and Pokemon, if you can tell.
Yeah, I definitely see that.
Gotten a lot of comments with people saying that the trees are like exactly from Pokemon, and I've like double checked and triple checked just to make sure. I've gone through every single Pokemon tree just to be like, I'm not getting sued by Nintendo.
Really?
Yeah.
No copyright issues.
I love how
here.
people are like, "Oh, it is," and you're like, "It's not. Trust me."
Yeah. Please don't get Nintendo on my ass.
Yeah.
I really love the art style because it's a totally, new game and new story, but it does feel familiar. Like it already like has nostalgia to me because it's so, Pokemon like and Zelda like.
Yeah, that's definitely my goal is to create, to cash in on that sense of nostalgia, but also to create that sense of nostalgia. Because like the people who played specifically A Link to the Past, I'd say, are about in their late 20s, early 30s, and I wanted to create a game that was a little more experienced. A little more heavy with its subject matter, and so I took the aesthetics of that and tried to bring in, I guess, the concepts and the issues that, let's say, like Fallout would approach.
Right.
Yeah. Now you did mention the RPG aspects. Can you tell us how detailed those go? Because I know anytime a game does say it's an RPG, a lot of the questions that surround that is like, how deep does that tree actually go?
Yeah, it's a very light tree. And that's mostly just because it's my first game. But if you see in the top left corner, you have endurance bars. So if I start running, it'll run down. And then I have health bars, and then I have a certain amount of keys and stuff like that. So I'm able to expand on abilities as I get new colors, which allow for different attacks. I'm able to expand the health bar, I'm able to expand the endurance bar, and I'm able to buy certain upgrades that'll either improve my speed or slow down or make my attacks weaker. It's like you gotta pick and choose what kind of things you advance on.
Yeah, for sure.
And a lot of that influence is from Hyper Light Drifter, which has very similar store mechanic.
So reading on your devlog, you were talking about how to create even just like movement in a game, and I guess I had never really stopped to think about how, intensive it is to write all the script and actually do all the code for even just like moving around. I think like me as a gamer and not a developer, I totally take it for granted. How long have you spent on the project so far, and was it harder than you anticipated, or did you know that that's what you're getting into?
Yeah, definitely way longer than I expected. I started this project and I was like, this is going to take me 6 months and then I'll move on. I started this project actually literally as a remake of Legend of Zelda Link to the Past.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, okay, like I've made Pac-Man, I made Tetris, I made all these clone games. I'm going to make Link to the Past because that's obviously the next step. But the difference between Pac-Man and A Link to the Past is a decade. And as you, of all people, know, in gaming, a decade is a huge difference.
Yes!
You end up with a lot of different things that completely change.
Yeah.
So I've been working on this for 3 to 4 years now. I've been working on the actual game, I'd say 3.5 years.
Wow. You have a team surrounding you. Can you tell us a little bit about how that formulated? How did you know them? How did you meet them? And what was that journey like when you were like, I'm going to set out to make this game? It's very difficult to do it on your own. There have been some people that have done that in the past, but what was it like, putting the pieces together and obviously being at what you're at now?
Yeah, it's very interesting. As you show people the project and as the project improves and you try to get more people on it, people get very excited for it and you're very into it. So I have like a pixel artist, Joe Pendon, and so I've hired him to do a lot of the character work and some of the environmental work and stuff like that, and he is a great guy, very, very passionate about what he does, and exactly got to the Pokemon style for the characters that I wanted, and the enemies and so on and so forth. And I have like a sound designer, and the sound designer is like, he's improved as the 4 years have gone on, and right now he's restructuring all of the sounds to make them better.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And these are all like friends I've met through college doing film stuff, and friends I've randomly met at parties, or like people have recommended me. Like the music you're hearing right now is like a versatile music that is from a music composer that I've only met online. I've only met in person once visiting Boston, but a really excited dude that is really into music composition games and geeks out about it forever. So it's fun finding a little squad and they all get into it and we all make recommendations on like, I'll ask them like, what's broken? What do you think's weird for the design? What do you think's odd? Give me every critique you can. Like everyone's a player in this essentially.
So I've noticed that you've been. I can't play games and talk over them as you're doing, even though I'm a streamer. I assume you know every part of what you've played so far, like the back of your hand, from just knowing it in and out.
It's way easier that I've played through this so many times that I understand. I'm trying to make it a little more playable because like normally I'd run through completely just to be able to get to the bug part. But yeah, I'm definitely having difficulty here having the in-depth conversations and going along with everything.
So these your weapon attacks, you said those change over time as you get further along in the game, like your choices of what weapon you're using also changes?
Yeah, so as you go on, you get the same swords. So for example, this attack, as you get bombs and pick up bombs, you get more bombs to be able to play around with, or you get different bombs you can equip or non-equip. And then also, once you run out of bombs, you get these map the bombs, which only really hit things and don't really explode. And then you're able to change here. I'm gonna speed front a little bit if I can without dying.
Good luck.
Thank you. But as you go on, you get to change colors, and as you change colors, you get different special abilities. So instead of bombs, I get like stun projectiles, and I get arrows, and I get like a shield ability. But then I can't use this dash ability anymore, and I can't use this bomb throw ability.
Very cool.
Wow.
So
the risk reward of making those types of choices.
Yeah. And so my point is like with these different colors, it not only affects like how you play against these enemies, but also represents what tribe you're a part of, since every color represents a different tribe.
See.
That's right.
Do you find it difficult to have a balance of like having this game be challenging enough to be fun but not too hard, or is that easier than expected?
I feel like I'm still having that issue right now. You play around with design issues and it's a constant back and forth. As you're talking about, to like make games fun is like a weird balance between like, it's like D&D where you want to make it difficult for the player, but you want to make it easy enough for everyone to get through.
Right.
And I've had a lot of people comment and be like, okay, well certain things like you shouldn't move forward when you attack, but other people are like, that's so ideal because it allows you to move forward, and it's just a small thing that's like,
right, wow,
you don't even think about it. And
I was just saying until you mentioned it, I was like, oh yeah, wow, yeah.
And it's like those things I've opened up Hyperlight Drifter and I bought almost every single Zelda like there is, and I've played through them to be able to understand and tell what's been like, what do they do and how can I alter or essentially steal and twist that to make it better. So
nice. That was cool.
Thanks. And like it's something like enemy difficulty and like enemy AI was a big challenge for me because it's like you like I never realized this linked to the past, but like certain enemies are like really easy, but like certain enemies analyze how many other enemies are close by you, and then you need to adjust for that and like if this enemy is close up, then the other enemy needs to stay back and use their projectile attacks or vice versa. Or weird things like that.
Some people in the chat are saying they've got some strong Bomberman vibes. Would you agree with that? Were you a Bomberman player?
Yes, I did play Bomberman quite a bit.
Love it
for sure.
What do you think?
Did you know that going into making those animations and those choices? Were you like, I want to have that similar feel, or was that just kind of like a byproduct of, subconscious?
I definitely went in with wanting the feel of Pokemon Red and A Link to the Past, and I definitely wanted to create that nostalgia. And then like a couple of the other ones, just like as I went on, I was like, oh, like this would work pretty well with this style of game. Or like, oh, I recently went through the SNES emulator and played this, and I thought it was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
So earlier during the news show, we touched on the whole Fortnite Apple feud. What are your thoughts on it?
Ah, man, I have a lot of thoughts on it. Definitely on Epic's side, I definitely used to be that type of indie developer, which is like, I hate Fortnite. It's like,
I used to hate Fortnite.
I'm the hipster
it's
of
cringe.
games or whatever.
Yeah.
But like as I got into it, it was like, like it's a pretty strong and well built game and well balanced, and like developers put a lot of work into it. But also like Epic Games in general has really built a really strong platform. As much as I am a Unity fan, like I love Unreal, and everything Unreal has done freely. And they've allowed for a lot of people to create really unique and interesting games. And to hear that Apple is like upset because they're not getting their full 30% of the cut because they're linking them to the like website instead of the mobile bot thing, it's like, come on, like you're a $1 trillion industry and you're like fighting with like company that is also like $1 billion industry, but it also is helping and actually providing and giving free services to any game developers, and potentially having those like knocked off like could completely destroy a lot of developers' lives and like livelihoods.
It could, and for me 30% sounds like a lot. Is it a lot, or do you think that's fair?
That's definitely a lot.
It sounds like so much to me.
It's really frustrating, and it's way more than I think Steam takes off. Epic Games takes off on their store. And the other thing is like I've had classic issues with Apple in general. Like Unity, like I can export and make a Mac version for a port. And if you haven't updated your OS, you can play this game as long as you allow the security side of things, because it's not officially approved by the publisher or whatever. But now that they updated the OS, I cannot even get it to run at all. No matter like what workarounds I do on the console or like try to force it to run, it just doesn't run my third-party game anymore. And it's like they've completely destroyed my ability to be able to make this on any updated Macs. So,
wow,
that's so awful.
With the current topics such as the Epic Games one, how about one that we're all going through? Have you seen a direct effect by the pandemic as you've been developing your game? Has it presented any challenges for you and your team?
Yeah, I definitely have at least like positive and negative, because I've gotten more time to work on it. But like having more time doesn't mean you're as more productive.
Like, interesting.
You start digging into it and you've been staring at the screen all day long, and all you can do is stare at the screen for entertainment. And then you end up getting like overloaded, or like you're bogged down with so much work and so many different issues. So it's a back and forth. Obviously, being a developer is better than any other physical field right now, just because you can do that online. But it definitely just messes with your head on development aspects.
Yeah,
that's true. When I think about marketing indie games, I've been to a lot of conventions, but it's so hard for me to even see the games there. What do you think is the best way to kind of get the word out there, from your perspective? Whether it's on Twitter, like I end up meeting a lot of other streamers on Twitter, or like mainly is where I meet people. Is there like a spot where indie developers are?
Yeah, there's Twitter is really big with indie developers, and going on itch.io and like joining game jams and talking with other developers kind of gets you into the field, and talking to people who can point you in the right direction and send you somewhere that you want to go. But I'd say the best thing for marketing and actually getting your game out in intention, posting on Reddit, posting on Twitter, posting on Instagram, and starting when you have nothing. Like when you get the first MVP, minimal viable product of your game up and running, like send that out and like show it off on Twitter, and you'll get some people staring at it. The worst thing you could do is try to start marketing within the last 2 months of your game. So.
Yeah.
Right, that's true. I think, that's a good point that I, as a content creator, struggle with. I'm like, I don't want to put anything out that's not finished, but you kind of have to, stream even when you're not all ready, or, put your game out there, when you do have that MVP, and maybe not when it's totally done. I love Onryo's comment of, I'm waiting for the Apple Tendo merger, where you will no longer be able to make a phone call without Mario listening in. Big Mario, you gotta watch out. Thanks so much for the bits.
You gotta look out. Thank you for the bits. I was gonna actually, regarding Adeona, you were talking about how it's like it is an apocalypse within this reality. What are some, besides, games, what are some IPs that are maybe in like TV and film that helped inspire or create this story, especially with like apocalyptic imagery?
Good question. There's an animated show called Kipo that I really love. Kipo's one, it's really great for having like a really variety of diverse cast. But two, it's set in this weird kind of magical world that is with like a lot of weird mutated monsters and after post-apocalypse, but like everything is built up and there's all these different kind of factions vying for each other. So I'd highly recommend Kipo and Adventure Time, of course. Adventure Time was a huge influence with this.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So make sure to check out Kipo. Anybody in the chat, I'll have to do the same. I'm curious. I always love, when I see like a news story and get vibes from it that feel like something I've recognized before. I always love knowing where they came from, like that inspiration, that spark, so to speak.
Yeah, I think that's something with art is like you take a lot of inspiration and essentially it feels like stealing, but it's like not stealing because like you're combining so many things together, and every game or every artist does it essentially. So.
Yep.
I have a question about NPCs. What was creating them like? I noticed there were some right here, and there were some in the earlier screen as well. Did you base those off, people you know in real life, or are they all OCs, or how is that process?
So these are all OCs. They're all based off of kind of like what the village is like. So Knoxville Village specifically is all these kind of stuck-up people that like essentially smoke this flower that makes them very relaxed. And that's their main thing is they consider themselves so much smarter than everyone. So one of the main aspects I have is like if I talk to this guard while I'm his color, he'll trust me and he'll give me like information and advice.
That's cool.
And interesting.
This like person will also act differently because I am Knoxville color. And then if I change to personal, the guard's not going to talk to me anymore because he thinks he doesn't know where I'm from and he's confused about me and he's a little weirded out. And then this person will also act differently. So like the whole aspect of the color change is like not only for the aspect of like different abilities, but also like as you talk to different NPCs, they end up changing their reactions. I guess.
And I think we know now, especially in 2020, as much as we talk about it and address it, that's a real life situation going on. As someone, as we pointed out, your flag is Mexican American. Did you have your own, real life experiences going into adding this mechanic that you were kind of like, I want to make sure people understand what this is like. So how do I add it without being too on the nose?
Yeah. And that's something. Being on the nose is something I'm very worried about. But yeah, being Mexican American is like I'm half white, I'm half Mexican. So I have people like a lot of the times like I'll go and let's say I'll talk to a lot of people from like if I visit Mexico, like everyone treats me like I'm American, fully white, full on gringo. And then I'll come here and I'll talk to my white friends and they treat me like I'm the most Mexican person they've met. I'm definitely like somewhere in between. I'm not either, but like having that feeling where you're like in a place that you're supposed to belong, but you don't truly belong is what I kind of base this color changing aspect on.
Very cool.
Definitely gaining inspiration from how Hyperlight Drifter bases their kind of gameplay on like his heart disease. Like this is based off like how I felt with people coming up either being racist or shitty towards me, or just like, treating me differently once they realize I'm Mexican, treating me differently once they realize I'm not full Mexican and I'm part white or stuff like that.
I'm sorry for you going through that, but that's also amazing that you took something that a lot of people could just use as something to marinate on in a negative way, and you were like, how do I take this negativity and create from it and help it tell a story? And just that simple mechanic, watching that and seeing people comment on that in chat is very profound to watch happen, and you have the world responding to it in that way. I think that's amazing. That's awesome.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, I feel like part of any game definitely should have like at least a touch or a flair of you in it. And obviously it's not completely going to be you in the game, but if you can get across a message and get across some issue or perspective you have, then you've successfully made a game.
So I have one last question about if anyone wants to get into game development, where do you think they should start? And can you be self-taught, or do you recommend, taking a formal class about, game development to get into it?
I highly recommend being self-taught. I don't recommend going through any schooling or education for it, unless you have issues with your own work ethic. But Unity has so many free tutorials on its own website, but also like YouTube. I call it YouTube Academy. You can learn so much from YouTube.
Yeah, you can learn a lot.
Yes, you can.
Yeah. Anywhere from like C# and programming to like shaders and like graphical stuff or level design or just game design in general.
Yeah. Even outside of game design, I fixed my car once because of just following a YouTube video. So yes, YouTube is crazy with resources.
Yeah. So it just takes the work ethic to be able to actually learn and teach yourself.
And where can people find you online? If they're looking for this game, looking to follow you, where should they look?
Yeah, if you follow my handle at Shrieky, I'm on that in almost everything. So you can follow me at Treaky on Twitter or at Treaky on Instagram. And if you want to follow the game directly, it's at Adeona Game. Adeona. A game.
So I want to ask this as my last question. I'm a person who I love focusing on the present, reflecting on the past. I don't really like looking into the future, but I also I do kind of want to root a question in that. After you get done with Adeona, do you have kind of the idea in your head for what you want to do next, or is that not really even a thought process for you?
Oh, 100%. There's a memeable joke with developers how you're always like wanting to leave a project unfinished because you got a new idea.
Nice. Can you share a genre or anything, regarding the next one?
So I really want to make a VR game next.
Hey!
Like trippy VR game that's
Nice.
specifically about like smoking and like that changing the gameplay aspects.
Interesting.
And everything you need to do.
That's an awesome idea.
I probably will still start simpler, and I have a drinking game that I've made physical, and I want to make it online and like in a Jackbox party game style. So that will probably
That's
be
cool.
next.
Nice.
That's awesome. Very
awesome. Cool. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah,
Thank you for
seriously.
sharing your game with us. This is super cool, to have you on as our first guest.
Yeah,
course.
thank you so much, Drew.
Thank you for having me. It's been a blast to be able to showcase my game and get everything done. And it's been nice talking about game development in general and just geeking out a bit with you guys. So really
Yeah,
appreciate you
and
having
people
me.
can play the beta right now, right?
Yes, the beta is available on itch.io, at Treaky as well on itch.io. And it's downloadable for PC and Mac if you have the old OS system. And is Xbox controller supported as of recently.
Nice. Do you have a timetable on when you think it'll be coming out?
I'm hoping I can get a full game end by, I'd say, end of October. I have most of the follow-up dungeon done and just finishing up some final bosses and some final cutscenes.
So you guys, everybody in chat can expect that we will be announcing when this game is officially releasing. So make sure you're always tuning in on DGN as we get closer to October so we can announce when Adeona officially drops.
This has been killer. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you follow Treaky online and download that game from itch.io. But that does bring us to the end of our show for today. There's going to be the VOD up. There's going to be reruns. We're going to post this on YouTube. And we'll be back again live Monday from 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific.
Thank you again so much, Drew, for being a part of this. Everyone in chat for asking amazing questions. Definitely check out Adeona. See what it's like, share your thoughts. And this is the end for us this week as we're off on the weekend, and we'll be back next week. We're always live 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
But thank you so much for joining us today. I am Kaisa.
I am Marrone, and this was Drew.
Drew, yes. Adeona. Thank you for having me.
Thanks,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone. See ya.
Bye, everybody.